Hello, welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel. My name is DP, or Deprezi as it says down there, and I am your host, or one of the hosts, I should say, for our channel. And I'm here with a UK Indy Spotlight / wrestler interview, and I am joined by the last true Cockney and the East End Brawler, the one and only Beau Bells.
Hello, thank you for having me. Good to be here. Good intro, love that. Got the key points of Beau Bells there.
Honestly, it's a pleasure to have you on. Yeah, I mean, and also you're our first female guest as well on the
Oh,
podcast. So milestone.
I know, right? Very exciting. Oh, I'm gonna feel pressure now. Gotta rep for the ladies. Like, how am I gonna do? Or just set the bar like really high, so anyone that follows me, gonna be like, they've got to live up to Beau Bells.
Exactly.
So we'll see. Or really low, and you can only go up. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, so obviously this is a UK Indie Spotlight. So Spotlight is on people within the Brit Rest scene. We work in a chronological order in regards to your career or your life even. So first question that we always ask is, what is, to your recollection, your first wrestling memory? So the first thing that made you get into wanting to watch wrestling or to be a wrestler or anything to that regard?
So my first memories of it are watching it with my nan. My nan used to watch it on Saturday morning. And I remember being little at her house and it being on in the background. So it's just always kind of a part of oh, this is something I enjoy. And something that, you kind of have that association almost with oh, I go to my nan's house and there's wrestling on. So that's kind of my first memories of it. I think my first I want to be a wrestler was when Lita debuted, and she did a moonsault to a guy, and I was like, oh my god, women can do that? Is that allowed? Because my kind of growing up was mainly WWE. Like I said, there were bits on when I was a kid, but didn't really take too much of it in. But once I got a bit older and started watching WWE, because as we all know, the Attitude Era wasn't immensely kind to women. But that was my I want to get tattoos and be a wrestler. She's really cool. How do I do that? So now I'm heavily tattooed and a wrestler. So thanks to her, here we are. So yeah, that's my kind of first memories. And then yeah, that was seeing her do high flying stuff. I was like, damn, I want to do that. But now I actually train to wrestle. I absolutely do not want to do any high flying stuff whatsoever. I was went into wrestling I want to wrestle like Lita and the Hardy Boys. And when I started training, I was like, no, I want to wrestle like Stone Cold. I ain't flipping nowhere.
That's great. Yeah. So next question I have on this list here is how long were you training, or I guess attending as well counts in a way? So attending shows, be it the big mainstream media shows, or be it the small sort of your local civic hall sort of show. How long were you doing that before you became before you started the training of a wrestler or being?
Oh, very long time. So I went to my first WWE show when I was 14, I think. My sister took me. We went to Manchester, and I think it was I've actually, do you know what? I found the program of it. I can't remember if it was Insurrection or Rebellion, but that was my first wrestling show. And I was just this is the best. It was amazing. The Hardy Boys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian did a tables match. I think it was the Rock and Stone Cold, when they were in their era. I remember at the end of the show, Stone Cold obviously taking the rock bottom and then just laying on the ring whilst the whole show closed out. And then got the mic obviously after it had finished and was I just want everyone to know I'm okay. And I was this is incredible. And I see, yeah, kind of that was the only show I went to because it was really expensive and I didn't grow up with a lot of money. So that was my one treat when I was younger. And then I think the next show I went to after that, I went to an FWA show in Colchester in about 2004, I think. Because someone I knew used to do commentary for FWA. And they also knew AJ Styles, who was on the show. And then my friend was like, do you want to go to Colchester and watch a show? I was like, hell yeah. So that was my first kind of indie show when I was, I think I would have been 19 then. So I was like, this is awesome. I've kind of blocked it from my memory for years. And then all of a sudden, you know, when you like have a flashback and I'm like, oh, and then I was clearing out a box as well and found loads of old wrestling like magazines and stuff like that. And I found the poster for the FWA show. I was like, oh yeah, shit, I forgot about that. But yeah, I think I wanted to train when I was 18. And my mum was like, absolutely not. So I was still living at home, you know. I think I found a school in Blackpool. I don't even know where it was. It was somewhere up north. And I said to my mum, I was like, oh, I might go up and like try wrestling. And she was like, absolutely not. Because I'm like her youngest baby. Never going to happen. She was like, A, I'm not paying for it. B, you're not going to the arse end of nowhere and training to wrestle. You're not going up north with a bunch of lads to go and wrestle. I was like, okay. So that was my kind of like first intros. And then I think I got back into WWE. I always watched wrestling on and off for years in between anyway. Always watched like a WrestleMania, like Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, kind of dipped in and out. And then about 2013 or 14, started watching WWE again quite closely. Went to a couple of their shows. And then I found Pro Wrestling Eve, I think in 2017. And went to the Resistance Gallery, I think end of 2017. So that's when I started finding out more about indie shows in London. I actually worked in my laptop just went wild. I actually worked in a brewery down the road from Resgal in 2016, and they were like, oh yeah, there's weird wrestling down the road. And I was like, what? There's wrestling? Where? I need to know. So yeah, started like going to like Eve shows in like 2017, and then basically got sucked into the world of British wrestling from then. And then they opened Eve Academy in 2018, and now started training then. So that's the kind of timeline of it, of where I kind of dipped in and out of it. And then since then have been training, doing all the things.
Oh wow, that's amazing to hear. Honestly, I think I attended F3A when it was like 2003 in York Hall.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know how old I was. I must have been like, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8.
Oh damn. Yeah. The one thing about Beau Bells is that she looks a lot younger than she actually is. Won't expose myself. Anyone can do the maths there. Try not to expose how old I am. But I don't care, actually. I don't. But yeah, I got into training a lot older than a lot of people. And I'm actually, there are some benefits to getting into it a little bit later in life. I think if I'd gone off to wrestle when I was 18, I might have been a bit more stupid, with how I trained and what I did. Not stupid, just probably a bit more risk taking, which maybe might benefit me now because I'm very safe in that I don't want to flip myself over something. But yeah, no, it's so that's kind of, yeah, started watching shows as much as I could in kind of 2017 when I found the Resgal and realized how much wrestling there was out of there, because obviously they had Lucha Britannia as well that was there regularly, and loads of shows. There was a ton of shows that were out of Resgal. So once I found that, kind of like deep dive into indie wrestling and finding out more about it and everything.
All right, cool. Yeah. What was I? Yeah, that sort of took me into the next question anyway. And it's something that you probably answered a million times. But for the sake of those who, I suppose, who don't necessarily know you, or for those who are just on this channel and just on our channel, the name Beau Bells. Yes. What was the inspiration or the origin of that name?
Everyone always asks because no one knows. No one understands. They're like, what does this mean? Unless, I think like some people from London know, because Beau Bells is a place. Yep, exactly. Big up the East London crew. Yep. So you knew straight away. You were like, how do you pronounce it? Yes, Beau, innit? It's like Bowie free. So the Beau Bells there's kind of like, I think it was in like 1700s. If you were born within the ring of the Beau Bells Church, you were considered a true East Londoner, a Cockney. So that's kind of where it came from. I think when a lot of people go into wrestling, they go into it with like, what's my character going to be? You start training and you start thinking about, how am I going to wrestle? And then you have to have a character to know that. So I was like, right, it's going to be elements of me as a person, as you know, who I am. I grew up in East London. It's very much a part of like who I am. So that kind of like came into it. So I did have a couple of like options of names. I think because at the time I lived down the road from the Beau pub. So I walked past one day and I was like, that's a sick name. I love that.
One day.
Yeah, one day. But spell it French so it sounds fancy. No, I'm joking. But I think just, yeah, it was a play on words with that. I think, you know, like East London is at the heart of Beau Bell's character. So yeah, it was kind of that choice. I also had Roxy Cray as a name, but obviously the Crays have a bit of a not so great reputation. Didn't want to like upset anyone in East London by doing it. So it's you know, I think Beau Bell's, because it's a place, it's a lot more like relatable. Once I tell people, a lot of people are like, what does it mean? A lot of people are like, how do you pronounce it? Because it's Beau. And then I actually had a match with Kira Chimera recently, and she was like, you know, it means beautiful, beautiful in French because it's Beau and it's Belle. And I was like, yes, I do. I thought of that as well. So like one of my friends was like, you should be beautiful Beau Bells, because it would literally be like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I thought, no, that's a little bit too egotistical. No, but yeah, it's kind of an ode to East London, basically. You know, it playing a big part in my life and who I am and how I grew up. And yeah, it's who I am. Beau Bells is, yeah, East London, last true Cockney.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I have to explain it a lot to people.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, we were talking about it before we went on anyway, as well, because I feel like the first one I mentioned to you is about the East London crew, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny because I just did another podcast. I think it was a What Do You Call It podcast, and the guy that I did that with was from Essex.
Oh,
so
right.
it's like apparently I only do podcasts with people from East.
Fair enough.
Not intentionally, but
hey,
it is what it is.
It's the gimmick.
Yeah, live in the gimmick.
So yeah, you mentioned how you found Pro Wrestling Eve.
Yeah.
And that you went into training with them at the Eve Academy. Was that right?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So were they your first company you went into training with? Like your first training? Yeah, company. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working in Bethnal Green at the time, and I'd found out about the London School of Lucha Libre a couple of years before, and I was so nervous about going because it's a big step. It's a big thing to go into wrestling. You know, it's not something that I took lightly as well. So I'd known about them for a while, and then because I'd been going to the Eve shows, and they announced that they were gonna like open Eve Academy. And you know, it being a safe space for women, which was something that, you know, when you're doing something terrifying, having something that's just even a little bit of comfort for you is great. So yeah, I turned up at Resgal on it's Sunday morning at 10:30, and I walked in and the ring's just there on the right. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Resgal, but it was very small, very intimate kind of setting for wrestling. And yeah, I walked in and the ring was there, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is insane. Like it's so, like, as someone who's been like a lifelong wrestling fan, it was real, like it was like overwhelming at first to be like in there. But yeah, so I started training there with Rhea O'Reilly and Greg Burridge. And yeah, after my first session, I was in love. I was like, I think we did rolls. I think, you know, learning how to do a forward roll, I think that's usually the first thing you do in wrestling. And then we had to do promos at the end, which everyone was terrified of. And don't get me wrong, it's nerve-wracking, but like I've always been a performer. I did dancing when I was a kid. I did drama at like GCSE and A level. So you know, there was another reason I picked wrestling, because it gives you a platform to perform. So when we got in there, we did the, you know, right, let's do a promo, get in there, tell us why you're gonna win at this show next week. So I did it, and I was like, I love this. Like being the center of attention is something I quite enjoy anyway. So I just feel like it was made for me. So yeah, I started training there, went every Sunday, trained a little bit at London School of Lucha Libre as well when they were there. And now I train at Play Fight in Woolwich, which is Cara Noir's school.
Tom Dawkins.
So I've been training there. Yeah, for
Yeah,
about a
yeah.
year and a half
Oh, fair
since it
enough.
opened. So yeah, it's very exciting. Very exciting. It's hard. I think with wrestling, when you go into training, some people are very naturally talented with the physical aspects of it, and some people have to work really hard. Unfortunately, I've had to work really hard, but you know, I love it, and the more I do it, the more I'm getting a brain for it as well. You know, you're kind of the
Yeah.
way you put stuff together and the way you start storytelling is like a muscle you have to use as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the bit I love about it as well. I love storytelling. I love performing. So I've had a very good background of trainers and people that have helped me along the way. So yeah, that was it. Eve Academy was my starter, but yeah, it was real great experience training. We had a lot of good people, you know, very high level women come in and help us as well, which was amazing. We got trained by Emi Sakura. We got trained by Tony Storm, Kaylee Ray, Viper. Aja Kong was there at one point when she was doing
Oh
Queendom.
wow. Yeah.
Nina Samuels, B Priestley. I know she's not called B Priestley anymore. Can't remember her name. Sorry. You know, we just had like anyone that came to Eve. A lot of people came in to train us as well, which was just an incredible opportunity. You know, it was. You know, it is still amazing to be trained by some of the best wrestlers in the world. So yeah, I was very lucky to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and as you say, like all the names of faces that come in through the doors, you're learning so much more from each person in their own different aspects and experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really like a good thing that my trainers have always told me. They're like train with lots of people, you know. Playfight have done a lot of great seminars in the last year as well. Been trained by Charlie Evans, Chris Ridgway, Gene Money. We've had like TK and Mambo. Like there's been some amazing like seminars come in as well. And you like, I think once you start wrestling and once you've been doing it for a while as well, you kind of pick and choose the bits that you like from people, and you can create your own wrestler. Because you know, I don't want to be a replica of someone else. I want to be Beau Bells. Like I love Rhea, but I'm not going to be Rhea O'Reilly. And you know, Cara Noir's amazing, but I'm not going to be Cara Noir. So it's picking the bits, like you say. You know, all these people come through your door, and you can pick and choose all the bits that you like and put it together and have your own craft, which is really cool.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
very exciting thing.
Yeah, and I think with wrestling as well, it's one of the few industries where you can, no matter how long you're doing it for, you can always learn something new.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, you know, I'm very new to wrestling still. I've been training since 2018. Obviously, the pandemic happened, but you know, I've been training again, and every session I go to, I learn something new. You know, and even you know, people that have been in the business for like 10 plus years, there's still stuff they can learn from other people. So it's always being open to learning and growing. I think is really important in wrestling,
Hmm.
especially for me. I love like I said, like picking people's brains when they come in, and I'm like, how can I make things better? How can I do the things that you do, but how can I make them mine? You know.
Hmm.
So it's very exciting. I love it.
But yeah, that does bring me on to something that you just mentioned as well. Um, the pandemic of 2020. Obviously, everyone was hit in a certain way, be it because of their jobs or because of family or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
how did that affect you? Your wrestling, your training, did it have any impact at
Yeah.
all? Or
So I actually have Crohn's disease. So when the pandemic started, I had to shield for 4 months. So for 4 months, I didn't leave my house. I think which was really sad because I had my like first match, like had a rumble at a show at Resgow in February in 2020, and then in March, I was told you can't leave your house until we tell you to. So the pandemic was real tough. It obviously I didn't train from February 2020 until Playfight opened in mid last year, and that was once I'd been vaccinated. It was really hard. Like there was a point I couldn't even watch wrestling because I was so sad that I couldn't do it. You know, watching other people. Obviously, there was loads of, you know, WWE and like everything was going on. There was other people wrestling, and watching it without a crowd was weird. I think everyone found that a bit surreal. I don't know how wrestlers did that because I have wrestled in front of a crowd, and I've done like matches at, you know, my school when we're doing like training matches and stuff. And it's so hard not to do it with a crowd. So I've got like mad respect for them for doing it. But yeah, it was real tough. It was really, really hard to, you know, I just found this thing. and I was training really hard. And, you know, that 2020 would have been the year that I started, you know, going out there and doing shows. You know, there was going to be a Eve Academy match on an Eve show. There was going to be, you know, opportunities for me to wrestle. And to have that all taken away was real tough. Like, it was really, really hard. And I think everyone in wrestling, I think if you ask a lot of people, you know, we couldn't watch wrestling. People that weren't able to wrestle, you know, a lot of like, there was pretty much no British wrestling happening apart from like, you know, bigger companies. So yeah, a lot of people found it really hard. Oh, my cats have just decided to have a massive fight. Sorry, everyone watching at home. My cats, Rogue and Rags, have just decided to be absolute idiots. Sorry about that. I was in a real deep conversation, cats. But yeah, so I remember speaking to Rhea about it, as Rhea O'Reilly, and saying, you know, I'm finding it really tough. And she was like, I'm exactly the same. Like, we've both found it really, really hard. And then we were like, no, this is a thing we love. Like, so we watched the AEW women's tournament that they did when they had like the Japanese wrestlers and American wrestlers, and you know, they had the part that was in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And we both, like, I cried when I watched it because it was loads of people that I trained with. So like I said, Emmy, and then May as well, who would come and train with us and stuff. So it was kind of like cathartic, and that we were like watching wrestling again, but also really upset, but also like really happy about it. So after that, I kind of started watching it a lot again because I was like, I love this. Why have I stopped myself? But yeah, I think as soon as Play Fight opened, I was down. I was like, yeah, their first session. I was like, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard going back because it was like, have I forgotten everything? Do I know how to do a forward roll? Can I take a bump? Like, what have I learned? What does my body remember? You know what I mean? But it was actually a lot easier getting back into it than I thought it was going to be, which was really a blessing, because I think if I'd really struggled, I probably would have been like, nah, I'm done. Sorry, my cat's being. But yeah, so it was tough, and we had other family members who were high risk as well. So it was, you know, for a year and a half, just not doing anything really. But it was, you know, keeping people safe and keeping myself safe. So
yeah.
We did what we had to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it was hard to be away from wrestling for so long. But once I got back, and I started training for a while, I think I trained for about 6 months at Play Fight. And then I had my like first singles debut earlier this year against Rhea O'Reilly, my trainer, which was amazing. So yeah, I think like it was getting that momentum back that was hard. But once I got there, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, I love it.
So you mentioned that your debut match was a Rumble.
Yes.
And that was February of 2020.
February 2020, yeah. We had, so the London School of Lucha Libre had a couple of shows, like student shows and stuff that they ran. And they had like a family-friendly wrestling show on a Sunday afternoon. So we did a Rumble kind of thing. There was only 9 of us, so it wasn't like massive. But it was the first opportunity that I, as Beau Bells, had to like perform in front of a crowd, like properly, you know, and take bumps and react and do all the things you're taught to do. So it was amazing. Like, it was so much fun. I think I only wrestled for about 6 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. And that was in a Rumble. So it was like, you know, do a spot, you go off to the side, do a spot, you go off to the side. It was knackering. Wrestling is literally the highest form of cardio, and I think every wrestler will tell you that. It's like insane. But yeah, it was such a good experience. It was like with people I trained with for the last like year or two as well. You know, got to wrestle some of my friends and, you know, start showing that I could do this, and, you know, that I could perform, and that, you know, when it comes down to it and you're in front of a crowd and not mess it up, basically. So yeah, that was like my first like I think everyone kind of starts in multi-person rumbles, that kind of stuff, when you start off in wrestling. And then I had my singles debut this year in February at Pro Wrestling East, who are based in Cambridge, against Rhea O'Reilly, which was amazing. She is incredible. She's such a good wrestler. She's got such an incredible wrestling brain. And she could have wrestled me with her eyes closed, you know, and made me look good. But I was very fortunate to have that match with her, because she was on my list of like, these are the people I want to wrestle in the next couple of years. So I was very lucky to have that early on, and I learned loads from her. And, you know, we had quite a short match, but I got through it. I did forget stuff, but, you know, we covered it up and it was fine, you know. and it was such a good experience. Pro Wrestling East as well, such a nice promotion. Like the promoter Ian, who I work with a lot, they're just a really solid place to be. And the fact that they took a chance on some newbies, you know, is quite rare in wrestling, unfortunately. You know, you kind of have to chip away when you get in.
Yeah.
But it actually came as dropout of a dropout of a dropout, but that's how wrestling works sometimes. So I think someone dropped out and I replaced them, and then the other person I was supposed to wrestle dropped out. And like I said, Rhea's my friend now, so I was like, Rhea, can you wrestle me, please? And she was like, yes, okay, child, I will do that. So I was very very lucky that she gave up Saturday to work with me and teach me lots, which was amazing.
Yeah, sounds it. Yeah, absolutely. Would you sort of again on that same sort of wavelength? Would you say that you not necessarily learn more, but benefit perhaps more from an in-ring experience compared to a training experience, or are they the same sort of building up blocks and all?
Yeah. So you can only, a lot of people say you only learn to wrestle when you get reps in. You only learn how to wrestle when you're in front of a crowd. So there's two different kind of elements. The training you do is to make sure you're safe. Is to make sure you're safe, make sure you can perform the moves that you can safely, make sure that you're safe to go in a ring with someone else. You know, you can practice as much as you can at training. You learn all the moves, you learn the psychology, you learn how to do it. But you only get good at wrestling and doing wrestling whilst you're in a crowd. I think there's an energy you get off the crowd that makes you wrestle in a different way. Like I have match practices at training and they're completely different to when I do a match in person and I'm, you know, fully in gimmick when I put my makeup on, when I put my outfit on and I am Beau Bells. I find it hard to replicate that at training. So I think you need both of those things. You know, you need to be training to keep yourself safe and to do all the things that you need to be able to do, but you need that, you know, you need those shows to be able to learn how to wrestle in front of a crowd and perform. Like absolutely. You know, I've done, I think I've had about 12 matches this year, and the wrestler I am from my first match to my match I've got next week is completely different. And that's from being in front of a crowd, reacting to a crowd, you know, adapting, you know, when the thing is, like, if stuff goes wrong at training, you're kind of like, oh, sorry, I messed up, and then you carry on. You can't do that in front of a crowd, so you kind of have to, you know, that's another skill that you learn, and you can only learn that once you're wrestling, like at a show. So you definitely need to do both. They definitely teach you very different things. But you know, I try and train twice a week, 3 times a week if I can, depending on if I have a show at the weekend, because I don't want to like completely annihilate myself. But you know, I want to go out there and be the best wrestler I can be, and I learned that at training, and then the show is like where I kind of put the practice in place and then have a crowd to like perform to. So you layer everything up, I would say.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Yeah, yeah. It does sound a lot, like a very busy sort of lifestyle as well. So,
Oh my god,
with
yeah.
that in mind,
Yeah, it's super busy.
what do you do? And obviously, you ain't gonna give full details if you don't want to. But what do you do in your downtime? Essentially, so like, is there a go-to film or movie that you like watching, or TV series?
Sleep and rest. No, I love what me and my partner watch loads of films and loads of TV shows. I love fantasy and sci-fi, like TV shows. I've watched the new The Rings of Power and House of the Dragon and stuff. I love like fantasy stuff. I also play video games as well. I've got a Lara Croft tattoo because I love Tomb Raider. I've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a new one out as well that I've been playing. And just like chilling out, I don't watch as much wrestling now because I'm training loads and I'm at shows. So sometimes it's a little bit like wrestling overload. I need to do something completely removed from it. But yeah, like we watch loads of like sci-fi and fantasy stuff, and I love like gaming as well. Played a lot of Animal Crossing in the pandemic. That is so addictive. I picked it up the other day. I hadn't played it, and my villagers were like, "It's been 8 months. Where have you been?" And I was like, "Wrestling, literally." But yeah, so love games and stuff as well. Do a lot of that. I think when I was shielding during the pandemic, I watched there's 10 Hellraiser films, and I watched every one of them because I love Hellraiser. Hellraiser, the original, like the first one, is like one of my favorite films. I've got the Lament configuration box like tattooed as well. I love it. But yeah, watched a lot of those. Also played the Final Fantasy VII remake as well, which was amazing. We're a big Final Fantasy house as well. So yeah, lots of games, lots of videos, probably too much time on Netflix, but what are you gonna do? And going to the chiropractor to make sure my body's okay.
Yeah, so to take you back to wrestling in a sense, because it is wrestling as well, you were, I believe, well, I mean, I was there as well, but you were part of Wrestival.
Yes. Amazing.
So, I only got down 5 of the events because I couldn't find the 6th event off the top of my head. But obviously there was everything patterned, Fist Club,
Yep.
the Head Drop Show, Wrestling Goes Forth, NHS SmackDown, Mummy Versus,
and
the one I can't remember off the top of my head.
That was everything.
There was 6,
God,
I
I could have
believe.
missed something and someone's going to be mad at me.
I know there was the Mythos thing, but I don't think that was part.
Oh yeah, Mythos as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough, because I thought there was 6, and that wasn't part of the 6 I was thinking of. But...
Yeah, because I went to all 3 days. So I hosted the Head Drop Show, Wrestling Goes Forth, which was so much fun.
It really was.
As you can tell, I love talking. So Rob Brazier was kind enough to let me be a part of it. So I did ring announcing for that, which was really cool. Like all of those were the British Rounds matches as well. So it's always interesting. Obviously, like because I was as a ring announcer, I was kind of like standing near it as well because I was doing the timekeeping, which scared me. Rob was like, "Oh, you need to do the timekeeping," and I was like, oh, "What if I mess it up? What if I don't know how to tell the time? What if I don't know how to read a timer?" But yeah, so watching that close up's really interesting because British Rounds matches scare me as a wrestler. I'm like, how do you break it up into like little chunks? Like, oh my god. So I'm hoping eventually I'll get to do one, and I'm sure it'll be fun. But yeah, it was really cool to watch that up close. And then yeah, I was wrestled on Fist Club. So myself and Rita Slayworth, who I've been training with for many years. So she started training at Eve Academy with me, and also at Play Fight. So we have a tag team called Gun Rack. Because she's got really big muscles and I've got really big boobs. So it was a match made in heaven, Gun Rack, you know? It was also a little play on, like, you know, the Wayne's World, like, Gun Rack speech. It's like, I didn't even have a gun, let alone many guns, that would necessitate a gun rack. So, yeah, it was kind of like, the 80s, 90s throwback thing. We'd been helping out at Fist Club as Access Warriors. So if anyone at the show was having an issue or needed a seat or was, a bit overwhelmed by everything, then they could find me and Rita Slayworth, who don the Ultimate Warrior face paint, and we helped out. And then when we pitched Heather and Daisy and Hannah, who run Fist Club, the idea of Gun Rack, they were like, yes, absolutely. Gun Rack versus Big Dick Energy needs to happen ASAP. So yeah, it was really, really fun. Like, being at, like, it's sold out, which was amazing. So when we came out, the energy from the crowd, like, was amazing. Got to do a promo, got to have a really fun match. It was a real pleasure to be a part of it. I'm hoping we do it again next year because it was amazing. I got to watch everything. I think I watched everything. Definitely everything pattern was awesome. I watched NHS SmackDown. Was incredible. It was like heart-wrenching, but like incredible because Hannah, who created the show, like, it was like her story, and I didn't know any of it going in, and watching it was like a smack in the face, but in the best way. It was incredible. Same with Mummy Versus. I know a lot of my friends have wrestled in Mummy Versus as well. So Rita Slayworth was in it. My bestie, Sky O'Shaw, who I'm tagging with at East, they were in it as well. And Mythos was incredible. I love Norse mythology as well, so it was really lovely to see that through the medium of wrestling. So yeah, it was just the whole weekend, like, everything was amazing. It was such good vibes. The theatre were amazing as well, because wrestling is a bit weird. So I think sometimes taking it into a space where it's not necessarily seen or accepted is really cool to start being that, because you know, as much work goes into a wrestling theatre production as goes into a normal theatre production. So yeah, it was such a good weekend. So did you get to some of the shows there?
So I only had time for I think it was the Thursday or Friday show. So I went to, no, not Friday, yeah, I think it was Thursday, because I went to the Head Drop show.
Oh, amazing. So you would have seen me ring announcing.
I did see you ring announcing, yeah.
How was it? How was
it?
it?
It was amazing, honestly. Outside of a few technical issues that weren't your fault.
Yeah, the ringing of the bell. They were like, here's a metal stick, clang it against this stick. And I was like, okay. And then they had the like, you know, like the Bell.mp4 that sometimes went off. So, and then because it was British rounds, like obviously when I announced the end of it, my mic wasn't always on. But luckily, I'm very loud. So, so I got to like, you know, when I had to announce the end of round whatever, if the mic wasn't on, I just shouted and everyone heard me. So I had a couple of friends that were there and they were like, yeah, we heard you. Don't worry. Don't worry. We always hear you. I'm like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite lucky in the sense it was also quite a small sort of venue, a small sort of area anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I can get my my voice out there.
Now just do it in a stadium like Wembley and
oh my god, I'd still try. I'd still give it my best.
But honestly, you did a great job with the MCing. Was that the word for it?
Yeah, I think like hosting, MCing, that kind of stuff, like ring announcing, all of it is kind of much of a muchness. I only did it once before that at Resurgence. They had an international Women's Day tournament where they did 2 shows in one day. And they asked me to host that, which was an amazing experience as well. Like I said, it was my first time doing it. And by the like kind of the first bit, like when the music played, you get this like weird adrenaline. And then I felt like I was on the stage, like shaking. I thought I was like, hello, I am Beau. It was like, it was really weird, but everyone like gave me really good feedback. You know, I know how to talk and engage a crowd when I have to. So yeah, it's been really fun. So like I said, Resurgence were really kind and let me do that. And then yeah, Rob Brazier, good egg, all round good person. Yeah, was like, do you want to do MC? And I was like, yes, please. So it's always nice to, you know, kind of be in that position to also introduce a lot of your friends as well. So people I know and get to, like, I love announcing Rhea. She's got the best entrance. It just flows really well. She's obviously thought about it. But yeah, and I know like where she wants to be announced as well. So like when, you know, like sometimes you get in and you don't have time to get in the ring to be like, and I know that she wants to get around to the front so she can do the Rhea O'Reilly with the announcer because I've watched her wrestle enough. So it's always fun, like announcing people that you know as well. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it was. I only seen Rhea wrestle once, unfortunately, which was the Head Drop show because obviously Crowley and Clementine had to pull out.
They did. The tag team you never knew you needed.
Exactly.
Spike Trevay and Rhea O'Reilly. Yeah, it was so much fun watching them wrestle. It's like they should do it more because it is the tag team you love to hate. Like especially them two because they're such meanies. But yeah, it was so good. It was like when it was like announced like that was what was replacing. I was like, oh my god. Did not know I needed it, but need it in my life now. More places book it, please.
But you know, that was great, honestly. So that brings me on, I believe. Yeah. So, as you know as well, we put out a post on Twitter to ask if anyone had any questions to ask you.
Questions. I love questions.
So I'll start off in the order that I saw them in, basically. So this is from, I believe it's just WrestleMania 00.
Oh yeah.
And he asks, how did it feel to go from the biggest heel to the most loved babyface in the Rock Scissors Paper tournament? So you might have to fill me in a bit here because I think I know what this is, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
what this is.
So this was. I'm so glad this came up because it was so fun. So it was Clash at the Castle, the WWE event. My friend Gemma, who I also tag with, and in another gimmick, in another Mick Foley, esque life. I also wrestled with Chelsea Smile in Smile and Panic. Okay. Which is our emo throwback tag team to like living in 2005. So my friend Gemma lives in Cardiff, so we were like, do you know what? let's do the weekend. It'll be fun. We'll get drunk. We'll watch some wrestling. It'll be great. So TK and Mambo, those cheeky scamps, announced that they were doing a rock, paper, scissors tournament at a tiny Rebel brewery, which is literally just opposite the stadium. Like, so as soon as it was announced, I was like, right, booking that in, because, you know, it'll give us 2 hours next to the stadium to drink somewhere that's really close, and good beers as well. So shout out to Tiny Rebel, because they've got very good beers. So yeah, so you bought a raffle ticket, and then if you got announced, they had like 16 people you get in the raffle, and I got announced. I was like, yes, this is it, this is my time to shine. And then got really intense about rock, paper, scissors as soon as I started. I was like, I'm very competitive by nature as well. So yeah, so once I started and was announced from London, immediate boos. And so I was like, fine, screw you guys, like, yeah, I'm from London, Cardiff sucks. I also beat a child and
Just out of context there.
was quite mean about it. Yeah, that was probably my best heel moment. That was like, I went full like arrogant Beau Bell's heel, beat a child, and then did the classic like shake my hand, and he went to shake it, and I did that, and everyone booed me, and everyone hated me for a good 20 minutes. And then in the end, so all of the tournament rounds were out of 3, best of 3. So I got through to the final, and then the guy that I was doing the rock, paper, scissors with, he won like 2, and they were like, oh, if he wins the next one, that's it. And then I won 2. So I just think from the drama of the last round, I became lovable. I don't know how I did it. I just won the crowd over with my passion for rock, paper, scissors. And there were a couple of people there, amazing fans from Pro Wrestling East, who had seen me before, who got into it and then eventually supported me. Also, I think the guy that was doing it was a bit of a dick, so they were like, actually, we love Beau Bells now. She's not being mean to a kid anymore. So we like her. I also, the kid that I did the like mean handshake thing to, when I walked off, like kind of, you know, like swaggered off like such a dick. I saw like the kid's parent like give him a hug and like kiss him on the head, and I was like, I've ruined a kid's life. So I like literally went over and I was like, I'm only joking, I'm so sorry, like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I was like, oh good. Oh, I was like, I think like it stressed me out a little bit, because I was like, oh damn, I've like, that kid's gonna remember that for a long time.
Have I scarred that kid?
So I went over and gave him a hug. So I think that was my slow transition back to babyface. I think people saw me go over and be like, I'm sorry, I was just, this is what happens. Like I said, Beau Bells takes over. You know, I start performing and that's it. I don't know what's gonna happen. So yeah, it was so much fun. Like TK and Mambo are such good guys as well. But yeah, it was really, really fun. Beat a child, then said sorry, redemption, but then got beat in the final, which I'll never get over. And TK actually sent me pictures from it, because I think Tony Knox, who's a photographer, was there and he took some pictures of it. And yeah, TK sent me it and was like, you might want these for, you know, put them up in your house, I don't know, but there's some pictures of you being a kid if you want to look at them. And I was like, cool, thank you. So yeah, so it was so much fun, and got really drunk.
So, I'm just waiting for that reveal, like, and here it is here on the wall.
No, but sadly, me, picture of me like this, yeah, and the kid like, there's literally, I'll try and find it and post it on Twitter, because there's literally a picture of me like celebrating whilst the kid is like in pain. So my finest moment, or maybe not, but yeah, I think I did some good heel work then. I should I wish it was recorded, because I could send it to promoters and be like, there you go, there's your heel.
She's the promo in the ring. It's like,
yeah,
you know what? Screw you guys. Look at the screen. Look what I can do.
Yeah, literally. I make children cry if I need to.
So the next question we have here. Thank you, Russell, by the way, for that.
Yeah, thank you, Russell. Thanks for eventually supporting me. Thanks for initially booing me and then supporting me. Appreciate it.
So this comes from one of our co-hosts, Rate Wrestle.
Yeah.
Who would play you in a movie of your life so far?
So this is a weird one, because I got told I looked like her throughout my whole childhood. Michelle Trachtenberg. if you say her name. She played Dawn in Buffy. She was Buffy the Vampire Slayer's little sister.
Okay.
She used to play Harriet the Spy, like years ago. She was Harriet the Spy, and I literally, when I look at Harriet the Spy, that's how I looked as a kid. So Michelle Trachtenberg, because she looks so much like me. She's also a very good actress. I hated her in Buffy as Dawn, little sister. But she was also in Gossip Girl as well, and she was really good in that. She was like mean, like Upper East Side girl. But yeah, just because she looks so much like me, or I don't know if she does now, but like I used to get told that. And it would be cool having someone that was in Buffy play me as well. So if I was being really like, oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar, but like it's not happening. We're not the same. It's fine. But yeah, I think that's who it was. I was trying to think of that because I saw it come up on my Twitter as well, and I was like, can I have like Meryl Streep, like best actress ever? Like who do I get? You know what I mean? Like who's won an Oscar?
Just
They need to have range, like that's all. Because yeah, wild.
all the accolades.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next question, we're not thanking Rate because Rate's a dick.
No, we can thank him a little bit. It's a good question.
Fine. Thank you, Rate. So this is from my other co-host, Frozzy HCW. He wants to know what are your goals and aspirations for 2023?
Ooh,
if you thought about it, that is.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I think like this year has been hard because it's been like picking up steam from what I lost from the pandemic. So I'd like to think I've done that a little bit. You know, I'm getting out there. I'm getting booked by different promotions and trying to get across the country and, you know, put myself out there as Beau Bells. So I'd like to wrestle lots, basically. I think this year I set my goal was like I want to have 10 matches and I've had 12. So once I sit and think about it, I'll think about, you know, I want to have X number of matches. I want to work for X promotions. I want to continue working with, you know, there might be people that I want to work with. I hadn't thought about that yet. I'd like to wrestle a lot more. I think, you know, I've wrestled on and off this year, but I'd like to do it a little bit more consistently. I want to get better as a wrestler. You know I'm at an amazing school where I'm getting trained by, like I said, Cara Noir, Spike Gervais trains there as well, TK Mambo, Nina Samuels. You know, I'm getting trained by amazing people. So just kind of grow and learn as a wrestler. Get some good gear because it's really hard to get good gear made because there's lots of waiting lists for a lot of gear makers. So I'm going to put my name on a waiting list so I can get that sorted next year. I want to do more like ring announcing stuff as well. I'd love to do more of that because I really enjoy it and I like it, and I think I can bring a lot to like promotions.
You've got a voice for it, absolutely, for the hosting, sort of MCing, yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think because I've watched wrestling like my whole life as well, I understand like the cadence of doing ring announcing. I've watched wrestling my whole life, so I kind of understand the cadence of wrestling, of how you announce people and, you know, what sounds good to an audience. And, you know, when I speak to wrestlers as well, because when I am announced, I like to be in the ring or at least facing the front of like the hard cam. So I can be like Beau Bells, you know what I mean? So I ask people that kind of thing. So yeah, I'd like to do more of that. I just want to wrestle more. I want to, you know, book me, promoters. I can work and I can talk. So, and I can make kids cry if the rock paper scissors tournament is anything to go by. Yeah, I think I want to do more things. I say that this year's been quite stressful because working full time, you know, doing a shoot job and wrestling and being a functioning member of society and seeing my family and my friends and doing all the things I want to do is quite a lot. But you know, it is what it is. I'd also like to wrestle outside of the UK. There we go. I'll put that in as one.
That's fair enough.
Because yeah, I think, you know, there are quite a few promotions that are booking a lot more female wrestlers outside of the UK now. So yeah, maybe go on a wrestling overseas trip would be amazing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty out there in Europe as well, and
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think
so,
before the pandemic, I was supposed to go to WrestleMania in 2020, which was gut wrenching because obviously everything closed down in March, and that was when we were supposed to go. But I would have gone out there and I was looking to crew shows. You know what I mean? I would have met a lot of more wrestlers and had that connection. But hopefully, I can pick that back up because there's obviously a lot more US wrestlers coming over here that I've kind of connected with and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see Beau Bowles overseas.
hell yeah. Beau Bell's no longer in London.
Yeah, I know. And then
no
I'm
longer
gonna have
just
to
in
explain
London.
to every single person I meet why I'm called Beau Bells and how you pronounce it. Do you think they'll? How did I don't know how like the French pronounce it, but will they pronounce me like
I should.
she is, as in the French pronunciation instead of like Bowie 3?
I think I'll just say Beau with a bit of an accent.
Yeah, true. We'll see. We'll see. If I go to France, see what happens.
Thank you, Frozzy, for that question. And the last one I have here is from our former host, who's moved on to do his own solo thing, which is admirable. It's from RGX Wrestling, who asks, which wrestler would you bring out of retirement to have a match with? They don't have to be officially retired, but can't have had a match in the last 2 years.
Oh, crap. Ivory? Is she considered retired? Is she? She hasn't had a match in the last 2 years, or has she?
I'm trying to think. She might be in a Rumble or something, but
yeah. Damn, I can't think of anyone else. I think Ivory. I don't know because like obviously I said like my big influence in wrestling was Lita, and I know she's had like matches. I know she was at Evolution, but that feels like it was about 10 years ago.
I thought that was 2018.
And she was in the Rumbles. Yeah.
Evolution.
I don't know. Time moves weird now.
I think we can count Ivory in it because it's only a Rumble. I don't necessarily count a Rumble as like an active wrestling match per se.
Good.
You know what I mean? Like,
gonna stick with... Yeah. Did not come out and had a singles run. You know what I mean? Yeah, Ivory. I think when I watched WWE when she was in it, she was so good at everything. You know, she was like the complete package. Like she's good at promos, she's good, ring work was amazing. Like when she was in Right to Censor, and she had quite a few matches with Lita at that point as well. And I don't think I appreciated it at the time because obviously as a kid when you watch wrestling, you're purely watching for the emotion and the kind of getting sucked into the story. But when I've gone back and watched stuff, I'm like, oh god, she was doing an amazing job. You know what I mean? She was an original and like so ahead of her time for what she did. So yeah, that would be like super big honor if I could be like, please come wrestle me, tiny person in the UK. But yeah, she's just amazing. She's like so committed, and some of the like stupid crap that she's done as well, I love. I'm just like, I love it. But yeah, I think everything that she's been given, she gives 110% to, and I love that commitment in any wrestler. And yeah, someone that was kind of at the forefront of women's wrestling. She was part of Glow. You know, she was a icon. She's an icon. So yeah, I think definitely her. She'd out wrestle me in a second, but I would love it. I'd be like, step on me, yay!
That's totally PG. Yep.
PG, sorry, just a little bit.
But yeah, thank you, RGX, for that question.
Thank you.
And that, I believe, brings me on to the very final bit that we ask. But you've sort of already answered it anyway. But who is your current or all-time dream wrestler to face?
Yeah, Lita.
Yeah.
Straight off. Yeah. I think I got to do a stream online with her for International Women's Day. Eve did a online thing, and they had different wrestlers come on throughout the night, and they had me on as well, which was really nice. And Rhea didn't tell me until I was going on. She was like, Lita's going to be there. And I was like, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd freak out. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is literally my childhood hero. Like, what? So we did a stream online and I got to chat to her a bit, and she was just so nice. And like I said, you know, there's a reason I am like fully tattooed, and it's her. I saw her with that big shoulder tattoo, and I was like, "Mum, I want that." And my mum was like, "Oh God, here we go." But yeah, it's, you know, she, again, iconic for what she did for her time. She did a lot for women's wrestling, and she's always kind of gone her own path, and done her own thing. And, you know, she also had to put up with a lot of stuff in, you know, in a very big promotion, and not be treated kindly, and just live her life as a woman in, you know, kind of wrestling, which is hard for a lot of women because there's a lot of pressure on them and a lot of heat on women in wrestling, you know, when you actually live your life as just a human being. So yeah, I think she's an incredible person. She's an iconic wrestler. And like I said, I started training and I thought I was going to wrestle like Lita. I thought I was going to be the Hardy Boys. And I was like, absolutely not. It's too scary. Beau does not leave the floor. So I would like to wrestle her because she can do all the high flying stuff. And I can wrestle like Stone Cold Steve Austin, because that's what I do. I just do a lot of in the fight.
The brawling
yeah,
type.
it's yeah. I do a lot more kicking and punching, stomping than I do anything off of any top ropes. Absolutely not for me. But yeah, no, she's iconic and I love her. And yeah, I would love, like, that would be my dream.
All right, cool. So yeah, that brings an end to the questions I have anyway, and the questions that we got from Twitter as well. And so that brings pretty much to an end of this. So where can people find you? Any, like, be it fans or I guess other wrestlers who are fans?
Other wrestlers who are fans, follow me. Social media _Beau Bells. So Beau spelled Beau, and Bells spelled Belles. Because everyone always asks the spelling, how to say it. So yeah, _Beau Bells on Twitter and on Instagram. My Twitter is usually me saying I hate the Tories and I love women's wrestling. So follow that if that's your vibe. And then if you want to see me wrestle, I'm actually wrestling next week at Pro Wrestling East. So I have a tag team there. I love tag teams. Apparently, I'm in like 4. But I'm in a tag team with my bestie Sky O'Shaw, and we are called Fight and Flight, because they're an anxious mess. So they're the flight instinct, and I want to fight everyone.
Fair enough.
So we are the 2 instincts that you have when you're faced with, you know, a kind of crisis. They fight, I fight. So yeah, so we've got we are wrestling the Von Englands next week, so Sydney and Aiden, which is very exciting. So yeah, that's Pro Wrestling East in Cambridge. So if you're around the area or you fancy making a little trip, there's an amazing card as well. They're crowning their first women's and men's champion. So I think the women's is Charlie Morgan and, oh no, who is it? I think is it Lana Austin? Oh god, Ian's gonna kill me. And the men's is Gene Money and RJ Singh, which should be amazing as well. And there's some tag teams as well. Rhea's on the show. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So if you are around and you want to go to Pro Wrestling East. If they're on Twitter, go get some tickets.
Some free advertisement there for them.
You're welcome, Ian. I'm not on commission or anything, but no, I'm joking. Like, absolutely.
But yeah, that brings an end to this. Thank you so much, Beau, for being on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
As always, if you're interested in coming onto the show, give us a shout, or we'll probably email you first anyway. But yeah, that brings an end to this. So I've been DP. This has been Beau, our guest. And that's all for now. Catch you guys later. Peace.